The information in this recording is general in nature and should not be considered personal advice. Please consult a professional and qualified financial advisor to discuss how this information may apply to your personal circumstances. Thanks for listening. Hi, it's Dane here from Own Financial Planning, and joining me today is Hugh Lam, investment strategist with Betashares. So Hugh, many of our audience are familiar with borrowing to invest in property, but are you able to talk about some of the different ways you can borrow to invest in shares?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dane. So there are multiple ways that you can borrow to invest in shares. And I think the most popular method is what we call a margin loan. I'm sure many of your clients and people out there are familiar with it. Essentially it's a loan from a bank. You take that loan out and essentially the shares or the collateral that's being used to invest in the stock market. Now, the rates on that can vary, but they're typically between 9 to 10% across the major four banks. So that's your first option, really, margin loans. Secondly, you can also borrow against equity within your home. So if you pay down your mortgage, naturally the equity in your house goes up. That allows you to borrow against that. When you do borrow against that to invest in shares, it actually brings down the equity back down. So that's your second way to invest in shares or borrowing to invest. And then thirdly, of course, we have internally geared ETFs like our suite that we have at Betashares.
Excellent. And how can leveraging be a way to enhance returns for investors in shares?
Leveraging is an extremely powerful way to enhance returns. And the reason why is because you are essentially increasing your exposure to the market. So how it works is when you borrow to invest in the stock market, you're borrowing on top of capital that's already committed. So instead of, say, $100 invested in the stock market, your exposure might increase to $120, $150. And so the percentage, if you say took the long run average on the S&P around 8%, that 8% on $150 as opposed to $100 is far greater. That incremental return is how leveraging is such a powerful tool for investors.
Fantastic. And so Betashares, you've got the Gear ETF. You're able to tell me a little bit about that product?
Yeah, so Gear is our Australian geared ETF. It's one of our legacy ETFs, I might say. It's been around for around 10 years now. And so what it does is with any internally geared fund, we borrow at institutional rates and we use that borrowed capital to invest in all 200 stocks on the ASX 200, so providing you that leveraged exposure. But I guess how it differs to a typical margin loan, you don't have to fill out any application form. You can invest directly into the stock market through any brokerage service like CommSec by using the ticker GEAR. And another important feature is that you're getting access to very low rates that you might not get just as an individual because Betashares borrows at those institutional rates.
Fantastic. And what are some of the costs involved in investing in Gear?
Yeah, so Gear has a management fee of 80 bips or 0.8% per annum. It's important to note that's on the gross asset value. When you convert that to a net asset value, that does differ and it is around that 2% mark. So investors do have to consider that and what they're paying. But to access it, as I said, it is Gear, which is a ticker, GEAR. You can invest through any sort of brokerage platform out there on the market.
Brilliant. And any final advice for investors considering leveraged ETFs, what to consider in how they would implement them in their portfolios?
Leveraged products with any investment strategy does carry risk. By taking leverage, you can magnify not only gains but losses. So when the stock market does reverse, the performance can come down quite dramatically. So investors do need to keep those risks in mind. But if you do have a long enough time frame and you are of the general belief that over the long run, stock markets appreciate over time, this is a very powerful vehicle for investors to accumulate wealth over time, and it's extremely accessible. So I think those are a couple of things that investors need to be aware of.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Hugh. And if you would like to learn a little bit more about how
how we at Own Financial Planning utilise gear in our asset allocation strategies, contact us at ownfinancialplanning.com.au. Thanks for listening.